Hey everyone, and welcome to Set Apart Student Ministries. Well, it is the last Wednesday night of the year, which means we're on letter Z of our A to Z's of what it means to be set apart. See, in my experience, what I found is that because there's this battle between the flesh and the spirit going on inside of us, a lot of times we're not moving forward as Christians, not because we're complacent, but because we've given up, but just because we're tired. We're tired. And so what my challenge for you tonight is letter Z, to zoom with zeal. Now that you've got the knowledge of what it means to be a Christian, man, keep moving forward. God does want to move in your life. And the challenge tonight is to finish the race and don't give up. We want to know what God's doing in your life. Follow us on social media and be sure to check out our vision service coming January 8th, where all parents and students are invited. Once again, thank you for joining Set Apart Student Ministries.
But it's just a fun little game. But statistics, math, odds, right? Like, who's a math person? I'm not a math person. Just kidding. I'm probably the most math person you'll ever meet. But have you ever been in a situation where it's like, what are the chances that this would happen, right? Like, what are the chances that mom lets us go out to eat after church, right? Like, you ever lean over your sibling and say something like that, right? Like, you're trying to figure it out. So I love this concept of odds, probability, things like that. And I like when odds are stacked against somebody and then they overcome those odds. Like a week and a half ago, I was reliving my childhood playing in a softball tournament, right? And my dad was playing with me and it was so much fun. And we're down on the first night 13-5 going into the last inning, right? I bat lead off, and it just so happened this last inning I come up to bat first again. And I don't know if you noticed about softball, especially slow pitch, hits are contagious, all right? One person gets a hit, it just keeps on rolling. We're down 13-5. It's not looking good. I come up first pitch, triple to the fence, right? We end up winning the game 15-13 in the last inning, coming all the way back. It's a great story because the odds were against us and we overcame. But how many have ever been in a situation like you get to the end of the situation and like, how unlikely was it that this happened? Like, what are the chances, you look back, how in the world did I get here? What are the chances that this happened? Anybody ever been in a situation like that? Yeah? Okay, so my first National Fine Arts was in 2010. 2010 was my first National Fine Arts. It was in Phoenix, Arizona. All right, I'm 12 years old. It's my first time doing fine arts. I'm in this human video. It's awesome. We're living it up. My dad's my youth pastor, so I've never really been anywhere away from my parents. He's there though, so it's all good. I'm I ain't got nothing to worry about. Now, we're going, it's after the service, and if you've been to Nationals, you know, it's a big city, right? It's a big city. Sometimes, somebody haven't experienced this part, but transportation's not always let's hop in the car and go. For this trip, we had to take the bus, we had to take the transit, all that sort of stuff, right? And I remember vividly that I was walking, and it was me and my parents, right? And I'm one of those people, you know me, I'm single track mind. We go from point A to point B, we just getting to where we need to go. And I remember my parents were all right, we're getting on this little bus, a little subway type thing. We're getting on it, and the doors open up. 12-year-old me, it's just, trying to do what I'm supposed to do, right? I remember vividly, I step forward, I get on the bus, and then I turn around. It's I'm turning this way. I turn around, and all of a sudden, it's me, it's the door, and it's my parents about where Isaac stand, and the doors just close. And I'm like this. And I can see my parents, and the fear in my eyes, right? I'm just literally what's going on in my head as I'm assessing the situation is, this is the last time I ever see my mom and dad. This bus is about to take off, right? And I'm never going to see my parents again. Literal thoughts. I start crying. They're just now I'm thinking they're the worst parents ever. I'm you're literally just watching me go away, right? You're literally just waving yes, we don't have to deal with you anymore. It was what I was feeling in the moment, right? It's what I was feeling in the moment as 12-year-old me. Now, I didn't know there was people behind me with our group. They didn't tell me that. They just wanted to torture me, right? We had our worship pastor, worship leader behind me, and I turn around crying. They're just laughing at me, oh, we've been with you the whole time. I'm That's still messed up, right? That's still messed up. But I remember in this moment, I'm looking and I don't notice anybody's behind me. I think it's just me on the bus, and I see my parents, and I'm thinking, what are the odds that I get in this situation? What are the chances that I'm in Phoenix, Arizona by myself? And look, we was staying in the red light district, right? That's where we was headed. Like, we was going to the place that we didn't need to go because, my dad was still trying to figure out how to book hotels. It was his first nationals too, right? So anyways, so we're figuring this out, and I was just like, what are the odds that I'm in this situation, right? Anybody ever was like, how did I get in this situation? How in the world did I get here, right? See, what happens in situations like this is what we're doing is we're looking around, we're seeing based on our past experiences, based on our interactions with people and certain situations and things. What we do is we gather the information based on our experiences, based on our processing of the information around us, and then we assess the situation and we're like, man, the chances of this happening are high or the chances of this happening are low. See, the reality is that our trust, I didn't have a lot of trust in this situation because of what I knew to be true based on my past experiences. The reality is that our trust in someone or a situation is often based on the odds that we face. See, sometimes we face high probability situations where trusting is easy, right? What's an example of that? When you sat down in that chair, how many of you looked at it, tested it? Okay, I think this is 30. No, you just sat down in it, right? Because you've been in a situation before where the chair did not break, the chair held you up. So there's a really high probability that the chair is going to hold you up, right? How about having a place to sleep tonight? Right? We know we don't have to fear I'm not going to have a place to sleep tonight. There's a high chance you have a place to sleep tonight unless something crazy happens. Right? Who's your best friend? Point to your best friend if they're in here. Awesome. How many of you know there's a high probability your best friend's going to be there for you? That's right? There's a high probability. Now, there's other situations that we face where the probability is a lot less or a lot lower and trusting isn't quite as easy. Like McDonald's ice cream machine working. Chances are, unless Donald Trump is working in that McDonald's, that ice cream machine is not going to work, right? Here's another one. How about people in Houma actually knowing how to drive? Very low probabilities, right? Because of our past experiences, because of what we know to be true. Here's one. Here's something that we can be assured of. Things that are guaranteed. Death, taxes, and the Saints not having a good team, right? These are very low probability things, right? We don't have a lot of trust in these things to be true because the odds are against us, right? The odds are against us. See, so why is it that our trust level or our distrust level is affected by the people we're dealing with or the situations we're in? Because, here it is, our past experiences and history of dealing with certain situations or people have a great influence on the current level of trust or distrust that we have. Are you following? I know that was very wordy. Basically, what you've been through determines how you're going to trust now, right? We gather information that determines how we're going to trust now. What do I mean? I don't have to trust that the Saints are going to have a good team. Why? Because my past experience and history of dealing with them tells me otherwise, right? Past information tells me otherwise, right? I don't have to trust that people in Houma are going to drive good. Why? Because my history and past experiences of dealing with them tell me otherwise. You see what I'm saying here? We get these high chance, low chance based on the situations that we deal with. And as we get older in life, we face more situations and we deal with more people, and these dealings and interactions affect the level in which we trust or don't trust. And this is actually true. If you were to take this concept, you would find this to be true in almost anything you deal with in life, right? Including our walk with God. See, here's what I see to happen so often in our walk with God, and I've experienced this. I'm sure some of our leaders have experienced it, and maybe you've experienced it as well. When you first come to know Christ, man, you're passionate, you're on fire, you're doing great, things are going awesome. He moves and He's growing us to a better place. We can look at how far that we've come and where we used to be and where we are now, but then we get to a place where sometimes it just feels like we're no longer moving forward like we once were. And what happens is, these experiences pile up of what we once saw, what we thought God was moving in significant ways, and He was moving in significant ways. All of a sudden, the way He moves in our life is not what we're used to, and our experiences begin to change. And so what kind of happens a lot of times is this passion that we have kind of goes out a little bit, right? It's not that we're not serving God. It's not that we're not, on fire for God. We're still serving Him. We're still pursuing Him. We're still doing what followers of Jesus do. We just kind of reached this place where maybe we're not as excited as we once were. Who's ever felt that? I felt that, right? We're just not as excited as we once were, or the drive isn't there like it once was. Now I want to be clear tonight, okay? I know sometimes I come with some really hard messages, you gotta just fix this and be better, you gotta be strong, you just gotta overcome this, and sometimes I have an extreme approach. But let me be clear, this message is not a message about complacency. I'm not talking about complacency tonight, just being satisfied with where you're at, not really caring about moving forward. That's not what I'm talking about tonight. This message, I'm not trying to say if you aren't moving forward with God, it's because you have stopped caring, and you need to care more. You need to stick with it and just keep going. It's your own fault if you're not moving forward. That's not what I'm saying. No. Those messages have their place, right? And sometimes we do have to deal with complacency, but that's not what I'm talking about tonight. Because I want to be honest about something that I've been experiencing lately. I've found lately that, it's a little bit harder for me to press in like I used to. It's a little bit harder for me to go all out for God like I used to. I'm not sinning, that's not what I'm saying, but sometimes it feels like I'm fighting that I don't have that excitement that I had at some time, that it feels like I have to fight to get to that place. And when I assess where I'm at, it's not because I'm complacent. Can I be honest? A lot of times it's just because I'm tired. Right? I'm tired. Yes, physically, but sometimes spiritually as well. See, deep down, I really want to move forward and see God do great things, but sometimes I just get tired and exhausted of the effort that I put in, and it appears to not bring the results that I expect it to bring. I'm putting in this effort, and I'm like, God, I'm ready to pursue you, and I'm really trying to go after you, but it's not yielding the results that I'm used to seeing or that I'm expecting to see. And so what happens is it kind of gets me down a little bit, and then I become tired or exhausted. And I think this is an experience that we all deal with at one time or another as a Christian. We're solid in our faith and are mature as a Christian, but we just get tired of putting in the effort and not seeing the results that we want to see. What am I talking about? Man, you've been praying for God to do a miracle in your life, whether it's a sickness, whether it's a family member coming to know Christ, and you have been praying and praying and praying, and deep down you're like, God, I'm kind of tired of praying this prayer because I'm not seeing the results that I feel like I should be seeing, and I'm going to keep praying, and I'm going to keep pursuing because I know it's what I'm supposed to do, but God, I'm kind of getting tired because I'm just not seeing the results that I want to see or that I feel like I should see. Or maybe you're genuinely trying to break out of a sin issue that you're struggling with. But even in your best effort, a lot of times it causes you to fall flat on your face, and it's frustrating for you because, man, I want to move forward and I want to overcome this, but the harder I try, it seems like the further I go backwards. And God, I'm just tired, and it feels like my walk with you is not, God, what's next for me, but it's become this prayer of forgiveness all the time. God, this is not where I want to be. I feel tired. Or maybe you're really and truly trying your best to grow in your character of Christ, but it seems like the same things, or it feels like the same things trip you up, or you're the same person today that you once were before. Has anybody ever dealt with some of these frustrations? Or am I the only one? I've been in this place, and so what happens is we get to this place where our experiences of stagnation and not really knowing, what happens when these things take place is our experience of stagnation and nothing really happening starts to make us believe that the odds are actually not in our favor for God to do something significant in our life. It starts to make us question our faith. Like, if God really did have the healing power, then why have I not seen the healing that I'm pursuing lately? Or if God really won the battle for me, then why do I still fall flat on my face? And we hear everything that, the preachers say, the ministry leaders say, all this stuff, and we do it, We're supposed to envision the elevation, but man, this place that I have that I want to go to, it seems like I'm not even making any steps to get there. Or man, I'm nullifying the noise and I'm really trying to glue into God's voice, but it seems like I still can't pinpoint God's voice and I still can't get the direction He wants me to go. And I'm X-raying and Xing out. I'm saying, God, search me. And I'm trying to deal with these things, but these things still fight against me. And it feels like I'm losing. And so it creates this tension inside of us. We know that Jesus is true and we know that He's going to move. But if these things were true, why am I not seeing it the way that I feel like I should be seeing it? And so what we begin to think happens is that, yes, we believe that God has called people to be set apart. We believe that God wants to do something significant in people's lives. We just don't believe that He wants to do it for us. Because if He wanted to do it for us, then we would see it already. And so we think instead of putting my best effort forward to live a life, we feel that the odds are stacked against us anyway. I'm just going to stick to basic living. I'm going to be a good Christian and do what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not going to spend all that effort because it gets me so tired and I feel like I'm not moving forward from where I'm at to begin with anyway, so I'm just going to stay in this spot. Why do we do this? Because I can still follow Jesus here, but I don't have to become exhausted for no reason in the process. I'm really trying to just get in your mind tonight, right? Because these are things that I've dealt with. These are things that I've been through, right? We like to put up the front in front of people and say, man, I'm chasing after God and seeing God do great things. And deep down, a lot of times we're tired. A lot of times we're questioning, why are we not seeing the results that we feel like we should be seeing? And I think many Christians get to this place. It's not that we're complacent. It's that we're just tired. Tired. Well, today, I just want to give you a message of encouragement. All right? I know some of you that know me know that that's not typically the route I go. But I want to give you a message of encouragement today, right? As we get to letter Z, I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but just know, I came to encourage you, to tell you a story in the Bible that's going to let you know that you can do this. You can be set apart. Just keep going. It's one of my favorite passages of Scripture to preach on in the entire Bible. It's Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. And the story goes like this. It says, a woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years, she had spent everything she had to pay them. But she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. She had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone out from him. So he turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my robe? His disciples said to him, look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me? But he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then the frightened woman, trembling at the situation of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. See, this is a great story of a miracle that Jesus did. And if we aren't careful, we can fit all of these stories in Scripture into the same category. We can think things like, you know what, that's great that God did those things for all those people, but I mean, they had it coming, right? I mean, they literally walked and talked with Jesus. They had it coming. Of course he's going to do a miracle for them. But here's what you need to see. If there's anybody in all of, not just Scripture, but in all of history that was more unlikely, that had the odds stacked against her more than anyone else for God to do something significant, it was this woman. Let me prove it to you. How were the odds stacked against her? One, her past experiences were stacked against her. She'd been dealing with this for 12 years. The doctors couldn't figure it out. And as a matter of fact, the harder that she tried, the worse it got. The odds were against her because of her history. How about this? Her lack of resources. The odds were against her because of her lack of resources. She had spent everything she had on doctors. Right? Another way the odds were against her. Her social status. She was this thing that you would call ceremonially unclean. What this means is she couldn't even be around people. She could be around nobody at all. Even to the point where she couldn't even go to worship services with the other believers. She couldn't do this. She couldn't be around church. She couldn't be around God's people. She couldn't be around anybody. She was literally isolated from all of human contact. Right? Another way, her family support. By law, because she was ceremonially unclean, what this means is she actually had to divorce her husband. And she could not live in her home. I mean, think about this. This lady she has nobody. Nobody at all. Not even her own family. She was forced to be out of her own home, away from her own family, can't be around people. She had done everything she possibly could. The harder she tried, the worse that it got. And she's probably frustrated, like, I want to get over this thing. I want this thing dealt with, and I'm doing everything that I know how, but I have nothing working in my favor, and it seems like the harder I try, the worse it gets. Have you ever been in that situation? Yeah. And here's another way, just to put the cherry on top. Another way that the odds were against her was the situation itself. I mean, there are so many people around Jesus. Here's what you need to understand about this story. These people weren't just walking and talking to Jesus, but this thronging that's taking place is much like a running back trying to get through an offensive line. I mean, they're bouncing off people, like they're pushing. It's so tight. Y'all know our vision services we've had in here with like 70 people, right? It's like that times 10, all right? They're like pressing against, shoving, right? It's hard for her to get to Jesus. If anybody saw her try to get to Jesus, they would have shunned her away because she can't be around people. And Jesus was on his way to do another miracle anyway. That's the thing that's like, okay, if anything, maybe Jesus can see me. No, Jesus is busy. If there's anybody in all of Scripture that is more unlikely for God to do something significant in their life, it's this woman. And many times we feel like we're in the same place as this woman. It's not that we don't believe God can do something significant, but we don't believe that the odds are in our favor for him to do it for us. And we look at our experiences and situation as justification as to why it's not for us. We prayed for something for a long time and nothing has happened. All the while, all these great and significant things are happening for the other believers, but not us. Well, we're just stuck in the same spot. Like, we've tried to do everything we can and put our best foot forward, but it seems like the situation is getting worse. Never seems to get better. The results that I've been seeing don't match the faith that I've been having. But what I like about this woman is that she thinks differently. I'm not saying the odds weren't in her favor. I'm not like, actually they were in her favor. No, the odds were not in her favor. But here's what this woman knew. The odds not being in her favor actually had nothing to do with it. Right. It actually is completely irrelevant to the story. It doesn't matter that the odds are not in her favor. Think about it, the excuses that we would make if we were in her situation. Man, I know Jesus is coming and can heal me, but I have been dealing with this for 12 years, so maybe not. I know that Jesus has the power to heal, but he's on his way to heal somebody else, so maybe not. But there was something this lady had that she valued more importantly than the odds that were against her, the history of what she had been through, the results that she had been seeing, and the practical reality of the situation that she was in. And it's in Mark 5, 27 through 28. It says, she had heard about Jesus. So she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe, for she thought, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Listen, this is what this lady had, and I know as we get to letter Z, you're probably expecting some revolutionary thing. Here's what she had. She had a knowledge of Jesus turned into faith that led to action. That's what she had. And I know you're like, that seems so simple. But there's many of us that don't have that. We have a knowledge of Jesus maybe, but a lot of times it doesn't turn into faith. A lot of times we have a knowledge of Jesus, but we think it turns into faith, but faith without works is dead, and we're not seeing the action, so we're believing that we have a faith that we don't actually have. But she knew about Jesus, then she believed in Jesus, then she acted on the belief. And that's what this woman had. I know everything inside of us a lot of times is telling us that it's not for us, but this woman didn't allow her situation to dictate her final outcome. She understood what we've been talking about for the past year. I may not be where I'm at, but I've got a vision for my life, and I'm not at the place that the vision that God has put on my heart yet. So it means that God's not done. It doesn't matter that it's been 12 years. If I'm not there yet, God's not done. She understood what it meant, right? To just keep on pursuing for us, remain in righteousness, right? She understood that even though I'm not seeing what I want to see, even though it's not adding up, I know that the steps of a righteous man are ordered by God. So all I have to do is continue to pursue Jesus, continue to chase after him, and he takes care of everything else. And she understood the concept of welcoming the wandering. See, a lot of times we would have been in her situation like nothing adds up for God to do anything significant, but she wasn't afraid to ask the question, man, what if? What if God does something crazy in my life? What if this is the time and all these other times that I've been expecting something to happen didn't happen, but this is the time? And she said, what if? And she kept moving forward. What am I trying to say? Don't allow your past experiences, the practical reality of the situation that you're in, or your comparison to others stop you from receiving from God and stepping into the fullness of what he has for you. Let's talk about that comparison trap. That wasn't an accident that I threw that in there. Let's talk about that. See, the comparison trap is another thing that stops us. We think that the way God moves in our life has to look like the way he moves in other people's lives as well. But here's what's unique about this story. We read of all these miracles in the Bible, right? And they all have something, a lot of them have something in common, right? Talk about the woman at the well, Paul's conversion, the feeding of the 5,000. Right? The guy at the pool of Bethesda, all these miracles, what do they have in common? Jesus goes and meets them. But this one's different. The woman goes and meets Jesus. And I'm thankful for her sake and for our sake to be able to learn that she didn't say, well, Jesus moved in other people's lives in this way, so I'm out of line to go pursue Jesus. And if we aren't careful, we can start to believe that we have to fit into the mold of everyone else. This lady went and met Jesus where she was. Listen, you don't have to fit into the mold of everyone else. Just because he did it a certain way for someone else doesn't mean that he has to do it that way for you. In fact, the story proves even further that the comparison trap can be dangerous, and I need you to hear this part. See, when the woman touched Jesus, he turned around and said, who touched me? Now, be in this story, live in this story for a moment so you can see this picture. You got Jesus probably bouncing off people, right, as he's getting thronged around and all this stuff. He's probably touched with every 10 steps. He's probably bumped shoulders with like 15 to 20 people, right? And his disciples, when Jesus said, who touched me? His disciples, they're like, look, Jesus, with all due respect, there's like a whole bunch of people here. Like, I need you to be more specific on who touched me. But the disciples didn't understand the difference between casual contact with Jesus and reaching out in faith to touch him. And if we aren't careful, we can start to compare ourselves to the Christians that are satisfied with where they're at.
That's good.
See, we like to talk about the disciples like, oh man, they were with Jesus. There's no way they ever messed anything up. But could it be that the disciples had gotten so used to being around Jesus that they lost the awe and wonder of his glory? At times, at least, right? We see evidence of this, at least in part, because when Jesus got arrested, they all said, I'm out, right? Could it be that they themselves have got complacent? I'm not trying to say that you need to rise above the church. I'm not trying to say that you need to be better than all the other Christians. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I am trying to say is that other Christians are not the standard. Other Christians are not the goal. And if you try to fit into the mold of they're trying to fit into, you might be downgrading yourself from where God wants you to be. He's like, hey, I'm calling them to deeper places. I'm calling you to deeper places. I'm just trying to see who's going to meet me there. And a lot of times the church isn't willing to go to those places because we become satisfied with our little party, our little group, and we don't care about the outside world, and we are okay with casual contact with Jesus. But you can come to church week after week and bump into Jesus, but this isn't the same thing as reaching out and touching him with faith. What's the danger of comparing yourself to believers around you and how they pursue? They might be caught up in a place where they have become so used to being around Jesus that they have become disconnected to his power at hand. We can't compare ourselves. Don't feel like you have to do it like everyone else. If you need God to do something great in your life, here's my encouragement. Go get it. Go get it. Don't let anything stop you. We get to altar call and I'm going to go if somebody else goes. No, I'm going to be the first one up there. Because I don't need a touch from them. I need a touch from God. Yeah. And if I'm the only one that gets a touch from God, I don't care if other people are left behind or if they're coming with me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pursue Jesus. We're called to be set apart, but a lot of times we want to fit into the mold. So as we get to the end of this series, I wanted to encourage you. A lot of times, it's not the things that we usually would think that are stopping us. Complacency, not willing to give our all, or half-heartedness. Sometimes we're just tired. Raise your hand as a Christian, you've been tired pursuing God. Right. I think if you don't get tired at some point, you may not be trying like you think you're trying. Right? Because there's a battle inside of us. There's a war inside of us between flesh and spirit. And guess what? Wars are exhausting. And so if you're not tired at times, you may not be fighting. Of course, we don't want to stay in this place, but I came to encourage you. Sometimes we're tired. But as we get to the end of the series, my last encouragement to you for letter Z is this, and I'm going to explain it. Zoom with zeal. Now, I know you're probably like, what in the world, Zoom with zeal? This is the only one that I would say probably needs to be last. The A to Y wasn't necessarily in chronological order, but this one is, because the Bible warns us of having zeal without knowledge and the danger of that. But a lot of times Christians think it's an either or. I either have to have zeal or I have to have knowledge, but I can't have both. And what we see a lot of times is many Christians start out with the zeal, but they don't have the knowledge, right? And we think we graduate to a place of knowledge and we lose our zeal in the process. But if you do A through Y, you've got the knowledge, but don't get tired. Once you have the knowledge, now it's time to move forward with zeal. Zeal means passion, right? Zeal means excitement. Galatians 6:9. It says, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Man, my message to you today as we get to the end, as we have students in here that this is your last youth service ever, this is my encouragement to you. Don't give up. And specifically, you three, I want to say something. Statistics say that in the next 10 years, you're out of the church, you're out of the faith. And I know as soon as I said that, all three of you were probably like, not me. Not me. I'm going to pursue God. I'm going to chase after God. Nobody that ever left ever thought, I'm just going to stop serving God. That's my goal. Right? Statistics say 18 to 28, you're gone. Now's the time to move forward with passion. Now's the time. I'm here to tell you, don't give up. Don't graduate to knowledge. Okay? But take the knowledge and allow the knowledge of the gospel of Jesus Christ to move you forward with passion. Don't give up. Everybody, don't give up. Let's not get tired of doing what is good. But at just the right time, you will reap a harvest if we don't give up. Paul talks about a race. He talks about a race. And we look at Paul and we're like, man, if there's anybody that wasn't going to give up, it was Paul. I mean, look at all that he did. But even he needed encouragement. He's like, I press forward towards the mark, right? There's many that start the race, but they don't finish the race. I'm asking you tonight and encouraging you tonight for every single student in here, finish the race. If you don't hear anything else I say in your time in youth, it's this: finish the race. Because I'm tired of my friends walking away because they graduated to knowledge. I'm tired of my friends saying, I've got this figured out. I don't need the support around me anymore. I know how to pursue God on my own. Finish the race. One of the greatest tragedies is to start pursuing Jesus with everything you have and end up in hell with all the other people that didn't finish the race. Finish the race. Don't give up. Keep your fire. Keep your zeal. And keep moving forward. You may not see yet where you want to go, or you may not be yet where you want to go, but God will get you there at just the right time. I'm going to ask some leaders to come. And I hope this message was an encouragement to you. Because, man, we just need to finish the race. Can you tell that real quick? And Brandon, you can keep the music going. We just need to finish the race. Because let's be honest, a lot of times we want to give up. We think, I'm just going to say this, we think a lot of times that we'll get to a place where it's not possible for us to not finish the race. I've been serving God for so long, it's not possible for me to walk away. But let's be honest, we get tired. And I want to pray with you today. We want to pray with you today. If you're tired, or you're like, man, I just need encouragement to move forward. These are things just to help guide you. It could be anything that you need prayer for. But I'm going to ask everyone to close your eyes. And